Pilot Boys in the building. Let's go.
Pilot Boys, we get on up. We gon' fly, boys, we getting up.
You listen to the Pilot Boys podcast. We are joined by a very special guest, Ohio State running backs coach Tony Alford. Coach, thank you for joining us on the show. How are you doing?
I'm great, guys. I appreciate you having me. Appreciate that. Thank you.
Thanks for joining us.
Yeah, definitely, man. Right now is obviously a crazy time in America, internationally, and then obviously more specifically with college football. And you're starting to see some of those issues that, are happening kind of nationally start to overlap with other issues that are happening, obviously, with college football. And, the big one now is obviously Ohio State being essentially locked out of football for this fall as a result of the Big Ten's decision. And obviously the Pac-12 has also followed. And just kind of college football being in flux and a lot of the decisions and understanding behind why certain things are happening is not clear. And, there's just a lot that hasn't necessarily been cleared up yet. But before we get to the kind of the decision itself, I wanted to talk to you kind of about what it's like to be a coach at this moment, particularly when you have guys that are on the team now who want to play and, who want to see what's going to happen with the season. And then also you have recruits that are coming in and people that you're talking to try to get them to come to Ohio State. How have you been dealing with that?
Yeah. So can you guys hear me okay?
Yeah.
Okay. So first of all, it is tough. And there's unprecedented times, as I've told people. And, I've been on the sideline as a ball boy, a player, a coach since I was 5 years old. And so 46 years worth of, being on the sidelines in some way, shape, or form. This is hard. These are hard times, but at the same time, I tell people we have to make sure that we keep things in perspective. That we just can't jump off the highest perch either. We have a young man in our office, Justin Perez, who works in our recruiting department. His son, Peyton's 6. And he was just about a week, maybe 2 weeks ago, was diagnosed with leukemia. So, and as I know you're a father. I've seen you on Twitter with your son and whatnot. I'm not sure about you, B, but I got 3 sons of my own. And, you want to talk about something that will put you back on your heels. That's something that happened to one of your kids. And so so my point of it, that conversation, just to keep things in perspective. At the same time, as it relates to our players, we've asked our players to lead. And they've done an amazing job. We've asked our kids to stay focused and locked in, and everything that we've asked our players to do, they've done it, and they've done it to the best potential that they could. And so we're very appreciative of that. And but they are frustrated, and they're angry, they're confused, and those are all real feelings. And and we honor those, and they're allowed to have those feelings as they should, and they are able to verbalize those feelings. But at the same time, understand that there's certain things that we can't control. And if it's out of our control, to understand that we can't quit. We can't quit speaking out either, but we just can't quit. And we got to stay as positive as we can and focus on the task at hand, so that when we are able to play, whenever that time is, that our mind will be in the right place so we can go and do those things. And the same thing with our recruits. This is not an indictment on any school, and particularly in the Big Ten.
Right.
So I know that the narrative may be out there recruiting other schools saying, see, they don't want to play football up there. I mean, come on. What are we talking about? I mean,
right.
Ohio State will play anybody in any parking lot and not worry about it. So, and so it just, making sure that the narrative coming out of here, out of our particular offices, is that, hey, man, we're doing all we can do to play. And can't wait to get you guys here. We still want you to be a part of this football family, this great football family and culture that we have. And we shall play again. It's not that this thing isn't getting blown up. We're going to play again. It's just a matter of when. And so we just got to be prepared to do that. And lastly, your sons, my sons, our children, our players, they look to us leaders as fathers, as parents, as coaches. They're looking to us for leadership. And if we can't stay positive, and if we can't, I didn't say not be upset. I didn't say that. But if we can't be positive, and if we can't to push them forward, to keep moving forward, boy, we're going to have a problem. And that's what comes with great leadership that we have with Coach Day.
Yeah. This has been kind of a ongoing thing, right, that you guys have dealt with as a team, starting with spring football, right? The spring game was canceled.
That's right.
Can you give us a little insight this timetable for you as coaches and as a staff in how you've kind of communicated with your players. Did you always communicate the potential that the season might be postponed and that there was a likely chance of that? Or was it more, let's just prepare like we're going to have a season?
Yeah, that's what it was. It's going to prepare as if we are having it.
Okay.
I kind of use this analogy, if it can go with it or not, if it's not no disrespect, it's kind of like being a fireman. Hopefully there's not, if there's not a fire, you may sit there for a little while, but when there is one, you better be ready to go.
Yeah.
And so we really just kind of prepared to play. And, during the spring, when they canceled spring ball, there was numerous Zoom meetings, and leadership meetings, and times where the players were kind of teaching in the Zoom meeting, and they were kind of the instructors, if you will, and just keeping them engaged in the game and talking the game. Then we moved into the summer months that we're in now, and so our guys have been great. Like I said, anything we've asked them to do, they've done it, and they've gone over the top with it. And so we're fortunate that our players are that locked in. They're leaders. You got a bunch of grown men in there, and the culture is great. And the culture is great, and they police one another. So our program, our culture is as strong as it could possibly be, and that's a testament to what Urban built years back, and then what Ryan has since moved on and moved forward with it. But really, it starts with it. You go in the locker room, it's the type of kids we have and the type of homes that they come from.
So that brings me kind of to an interesting thing, because I obviously know that, you guys want to play, right? All the coaches want to play, all the players want to play. That's not really in question. So if I ask you, what did you think about the decision? I already kind of know that answer.
How about you ask the question? I would say the next question.
Right, exactly. So, but there is something that's unique, and you touched on this a little bit about this scenario to me, and V and I have talked about this offline, which is that at some point, right, it seems as though there's got to be a balance between, obviously fighting for your players and fighting for a season, but then also, representing the Big Ten, right? Because and kind of being in solidarity with the Big Ten. Because at the end of the day, Ohio State's not going to leave the Big Ten, right, over this. No. And so you don't want to do too much to make your conference look bad, per se, in the public eye, and have recruits not want to necessarily come play there. But at the same time, you want to be shown to be fighting for what your players' interests are. How do you even reconcile those, and how do you even balance those?
How am I balancing them?
Yeah.
I think if you were to ask my players, and if you were to ask the guys that I've recruited, if you were to ask my own children, I'm a pretty transparent guy, and I kind of call it what it is, and I'll tell you I'll tell you what I think, and don't have to agree with it.
Right.
We as men can agree to disagree, but I'm pretty adept at speaking my mind. Sometimes that can be detrimental, but at the same, as you're saying, there's a fine line, and do we want to play? We absolutely do, and we're very vocal about that. Mm-hmm. But we also understand that it's not solely our decision. Mm-hmm. And just like anything else that happens in the free world, there's some things that just are not your decision. And I'm so far down. I'm so far down the food chain. This thing is so far above my pay scale that I can jump up and down all I want. Then it's not going to matter, good or bad. And but I do. We're in a conference. We're in one of I believe, the best conference in the country, and debatably, it depends who you talk to, and that's not going to change. And so we're not going to allow these decisions to define us. And like I said, we'll keep our head above it, and you stay above the cut and stay positive, because that's all you can do. Mm-hmm. What's your alternative? Quit? Come on.
Right.
So I'm sorry, B, go ahead.
No, go ahead. It seems as like one of the biggest points of contention that you guys kind of have with the conference, and the parents and the players have, is a lack of clear communication, right? So I wanted to ask you about that in terms of how this decision was communicated to you guys as a coaching staff, as an athletic program. Were there epidemiologists? Because we're in the Big Ten. It's not just a football conference. You have some of the smartest scientists, some of the smartest epidemiologists,
correct,
some of the smartest doctors within the conference as resources. Correct. Do you feel like you guys are being communicated, or they are communicating to you guys, to the conference, and that communication is filtering down to all the levels properly?
Well, I can only communicate as what I'm told, and specifically from Ryan Day, our head coach.
Okay.
And so for me to say what's going on at the higher ups, I would be unfair and unjust for me to say or even pass judgment. And I know that may sound like a company answer, but it's real. I don't know. If Mr. Warren were sitting, if the commissioner was standing in front of me, I gotta be honest, I don't know him, so I can't speak disparagingly about anybody that said or done anything because I don't know. I've been charged. Here's what I've been charged with.
Okay.
To be the best position coach that I possibly can be, and to recruit the best possible student athletes to Ohio State, and I'm working diligently at that, and I'm working diligently to help develop and mentor my players to be elite in every category of their life. And when they say, hey, we're going to shut this thing down, okay, we're going to shut it down. When they say, okay, Tony, it's time to come back, here we go, then okay, here we go.
Yeah.
And I got to be honest, I don't ask a lot of questions.
That's good.
I don't ask a bunch. And that may sound like, well, you don't care. I do care. I care deeply.
Mm-hmm.
But I was charged with doing a certain job, and I'm going to do that job to my fullest. And then when the dynamics or the assignment changes, let me know what it is, and then we'll go after that one. And that's kind of how that's quite frankly kind of how I've lived my life, right, wrong, or different. And that's not to put your question off, V, but I don't know. I mean, those doctors are way above my thought level. I mean, they started using language I wouldn't know what they were talking about anyway. So but so I don't know if that answers your question or not.
No, go ahead.
Yeah, no, I was going to say you mentioned something that I kind of wanted to transition to a little bit too, which is recruiting and, obviously being the best coach that you can be. And, obviously, through your tenure, you've had great success. And then there was a small period of time where people started to criticize, and I'm sure you heard it, whether or not you could recruit the best and what was happening to Ohio State's running backs and all that stuff. And then, you hit them with like a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 combination, right? And just started bringing them back in. And you never didn't have them, but you started bringing them in. And then the whole narrative changed. And I guess I have 2 questions about that. One is, how did you deal with kind of that period of adversity, knowing that deep down you didn't buy into what people were saying? And then the second question is, did you have that ha-ha moment? I told you so, maybe internally behind the scenes. Hey, just keep it real because we're human, And so, yeah, those are my 2 questions with regard to that.
As far as the criticism, the hardest part for me was just some of the stuff that my children were hearing. Listen, I'm a grown man. I signed up for this. So you take the good with the bad, and there's a lot of ebb and flows with that, and so you understand that going in. But when my sons are coming home looking at me saying, "Hey, Dad, what about this?" And I'm like, well, "Who told you that?"
Right, right.
And so that was that was kind of disheartening. But to say all that, at least we're at a place, coach at a place that people care enough, whether you do or don't have success. You could be somewhere they could care less if you got a recruiter, care less if you got them. So, but I'm not going to let someone else and someone else's, especially people that I don't know personally, that I don't know them intimately personally like that. I'm not going to let them define how I think about me. That's never ever going to happen. I know who I am. I know the quality of work that I try to give every single day. And I'm, I think that everybody's going to do the best that they can do. And sometimes it doesn't work out, and you got to go back and say, okay, what did I do? What can I do differently to make this, to kind of flip the script, if you will? It didn't come out the way I wanted to come out because there's nobody more competitive. I mean, no one's going to put more pressure on me than I'll put on myself. And so, so when you say, well, you didn't get a couple guys in recruiting, well, you lost. I lost, and that I lost, and that's bothersome. Right. It's like if you lose a game, that's bothersome. And so how do you get that taste out of your mouth? Well, go win a game. Go win another recruiting battle.
Right.
And so that's what we're working to go do, or I should say, I'm working to go do. And but it is what it is. Like I said, just as much as they're praising you, they can They can start slandering you just in the same breath. So, you know, take the good with the bad and never too high, never too low on either side of the spectrum and try to keep an even keel. At least I try to. I'm not saying I'm always great at it, but I certainly try to. And as far as that aha moment, I ain't got time for that. Not time for that, man. You know, you get it moving and
gotta coach those kids.
You coach the guys. It's, you know, our recruiting is a very collaborative effort, and like I said, you know, you just trying to just keep getting better every day.
I wanted to ask you about your initial decision to come to Ohio State. Right, you were at another very tradition-rich program, in Notre Dame. What made Ohio State such an attractive option for you? And once you've gotten here, what has made it feel like home? Because I know you were very deeply rooted in the program you were at before.
Yeah, I was. And quick story. So I got the call on I guess Thursday night, and I said, we'll talk Friday. So Friday, we really started having some real deep conversations because Thursday night was just too late at night when this all started to shake down. I remember, I was going to pick my kids up at school. It was late in the afternoon, and Earl Bruce calls me. The legendary Earl Bruce is like, and he was like a second father. I played for him at Colorado State. I have his fedora hat in my office right back here.
Wow.
And he calls me and he says, Tony, this is Coach. And I said, yeah, of course, I know. You know? And he said, well, what are you doing? I said, well, I'm going to pick my kids up at school. And he said, no, Dan, what are you doing? I said, well, what are you talking about? He goes, you know what I'm talking about. Did Urban offer you the job at Ohio State? And I said, oh, yes, sir, he did. He goes, well, what are you doing? I said, well, I'm thinking it over. And he goes, well, let me help you, son. And I know if I'd been with him, he would have stuck that middle finger right in my chest. And but he said, well, let me help you, son. It's time to bring your ass home. And he said, we're family. He goes, do you understand me? And I didn't answer. He said, do you understand me, Tony Alford? And I said, yes, sir. And he said, okay, bye. And then he goes, oh, my wife was sitting next to me. She was wearing a speakerphone. He said, bye. Then he goes, oh, good talking to you, Trina. She said, so we hang the phone up, and she turns and she looks at him. She goes, so I guess we're moving. And I said, yeah, you better call the realtor.
Wow.
So, I mean, that's a true story. That's a true story. But you know, I came here. I just, you know, one of the conversations that I've had, and Trina and I had a conversation about it, and we were sitting there, and you know, one of the things we ask our sons to do. One of the things I've always asked all my players at every level and every school I've ever been to is to grow. And how do you grow? You must become comfortable being uncomfortable. Mm-hmm. And that's the only time you're going to grow is if you push yourself past these different limits and you get out of your comfort zone. And I was very comfortable at Notre Dame. I love Notre Dame. It was awesome. I loved it. The people treated me fantastic. I had really, 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 really good players. We were having success. And I was comfortable. But as Trina said, well, if you really want to grow, then you got to do what you say you want our kids to do and what your players to do. And if you don't want to do that, that's fine. But then quit saying that you want these other things. Mm-hmm. And most people that, you know, and again, I think I'm pretty headstrong and stubborn, but if most people had said that to me, I'd have looked at them and wanted to swing at them. Right. But it was sitting there looking at my wife and I said, damn, she's right. Mm-hmm. And so that was really a main portion of it that I said, you know, if I got to step out on this ledge a little bit. And you know, Urban was an assistant coach for us at Colorado State when I played. You know, we talked a lot about in previous years, even to me coming here, about, you know, my desire to one day be a head coach in preparation of leading and building my leadership skills and things like that. So what better opportunity? And to come to a program like Ohio State that was coming off of a national championship, is at the forefront of college football every single year. Why wouldn't I do that and take that opportunity and take that leap of faith? And I'm glad I did. It's far exceeded what even I thought it would be, to be honest with you. And that's no disrespect to any other place I've been, but this place is it's unbelievable. It's
so let me ask you that, and it's specific to Notre Dame, but then also just kind of nationally, because I'm always curious. You know, I'm born and raised in Columbus. V is from Ohio. We both went to Ohio State. Our view is a little bit skewed sometimes. What is what perspective do people have nationally when it comes to Ohio State outside of Columbus, Ohio? What does Notre Dame, the program, think about Ohio State? What do the other programs you've been around, coaches, think about Ohio State?
Well, I know what we said about Ohio State when I coached them. I don't know what they're saying now.
Right.
I'm out of those offices, but I can tell you that it wasn't real kind what we said.
Yeah, I believe that.
But we were direct competition.
Yeah,
for
sure.
So a lot of it was friendly banter. But I think that Ohio State holds a lot of weight. Mm-hmm. And I think during this pandemic and during these times right now, we're finding out just how big of a voice Ohio State actually does have. Mm-hmm. Every time you think about the national media, whenever they talk about college football, we're at the front of that conversation with a couple other teams as well. Yeah. But obviously one of the blue bloods in the history of this game. And this thing holds a lot of weight. It does. I think that, it's one of the largest alumni bases in the country. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And so there's a humongous following. But again, I think it also helps when we have kids like we have, that they are leaders. And when you listen to our guys talk, they're thoughtful and they're prepared and they're respectful and they look the part. And then they go on to the next level. And I won't say all of them, but we have great success with guys at the next level too. Mm-hmm. So I don't think you can look at this place and say, well, it's just a football factory. And that's all it is, because that's one of the things that people would say about us. So it's just a big football factory. They don't care about the kids as people. They don't prepare them for life after football, and on and on and on and on and on. Or find out that that's not true at all. Mm-hmm. And I think if you were to ask our players if we care about them, I think if you were to ask our parents, do we care about them? As young men and as people, as individuals, they would come off their chairs so fast. And I can say that when you look at the parent group that we had, the parent letter and all the parents that jumped onto this thing about petitioning to play and to the commissioner, what parent in their right mind is going to put their children in harm's way? None of us are, which just speaks to the trust that they've afforded us with their children. And so that's kind of some of the things that I found about this place, that this is a special place. And our fan base is rabid now. Our fan base is real.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, they are real, mm-hmm. and they're vocal about it.
Yeah.
And I know a lot of people say, oh, they're so obnoxious. No, they're not. I think they're great.
Right.
I think they're the best. And I mean, if you're going to be involved in college football, why would you not want to be involved in a place like this? Mm-hmm. I mean, you guys grew up here. You know it. You guys been to more games than I've been to. Right. But why would you not want to be a part of something that people are so passionate about? Mm-hmm. That guy. I don't know if you know Tennessee Jeff, and he sat outside. This guy drove up from Centerville. I was outside of practice, like the last practice we had. I walked up to him. He's in tears. I mean, the guy's in tears. He's fanatical about it, and you got. I mean, the buck nuts that are everywhere. So this place is unbelievable. I'm very blessed and honored to be able to work in a place like this.
I wanted to circle back to something you mentioned in my last question about how you had a conversation with Urban, knowing that you wanted to be a head coach eventually, and we keep hearing this from the guys and the coaches all the way down to the design team. That Urban really cares about what your goals are, right? Versus, there are other programs who want to try to keep their coaches around forever, and not let them go. But if you look at Urban's coaching tree from everywhere he's gone, he encourages everyone to have their own ambition and their own goals. I just wanted you to talk a little bit about that and how special that is versus some other people. I'm not going to say any names, but other people you might have worked for or with that didn't have that same mindset.
Yeah, I think that is unique, and Ryan's built the same way, but Urban was definitely built that way, and he goes so far to say, if you don't aspire to be a head coach or aspire to grow into further along in his career, I don't want you. I've heard him say that numerous times. Why do I want you if you don't want to grow and be better? Mm-hmm. But I will say this too. So in that growth process, so he is going to push you to no end. I mean, he is all over everything. Mm-hmm. And there is no detail that's too small. There is no stone that's not going to be unturned, and it might be turned over 2 or 3 different times. And the old adage we use is like 4th and 1. all the time. But that's how you get better, and that's how you continue to push yourself and you stay on edge. And so, but I remember I've known the guy since I was 20 years old, so I get it.
Right.
And Earl was very similar to that, and Ryan is that way too, in his own way. So, I do. I admire that, but I also think that people have to do things and coach within their own personalities, and you form your own way of doing things, and to say which way is right or wrong. How can you judge that? Each man will have, especially guys who've been successful. There's been a bunch of different ways guys have been successful, and they've done it in their own way, shape, and form, and that's Urban's way. But no, I'm honored that I've learned so much. I have learned so much since I've been here, and I told Urban that, and I've told Ryan that too. I've learned so much, not just as a football coach, but as a person and as a man, and I've grown a lot. As a football coach, as a man, as a father, I've grown a lot since my time here in Columbus, and a lot of that is attributed to our work.
Well, you just touched on it, and I was going to ask you this actually later, but I think it's a good time now. So just some of the differences between Urban and Ryan. I mean, obviously they're both successful in their own right, but stylistically they're different. And we've talked to Austin Mack and other people who've given us their opinion. So I wanted to hear yours about what's the difference between the two.
I won't dive too deep into that one, other than the fact that you talk about both of them are highly, highly, highly intense individuals. I mean, all you got to do with Ryan Day is go out there and go back there in that basketball court, step on that basketball court one time in the back, and you start playing little games with him. I mean, this guy,
it comes out.
It comes out quickly, quickly, and but no, and so they're both very intense individuals. That they both expect a lot, expect the best, demand the best as they should, and so like I said, man, I'm fired up to be here, and to have been here. I'm going on 6 years. That's a long time for doing one place in our profession. So my career has been one of. I mean, you think about it, I've been at Notre Dame for 6, then here for going on 6. Come on now. I mean, I've had a pretty good run here.
Living the dream.
I'm living the dream, man, and I've been really fortunate to work for some good guys that I do believe have had genuine care for me and my family. So I've been very fortunate that way. I know there's a way of dancing around your question.
No, that's good.
we can circle.
We already
back
know the answer, by
the way. we can circle back to the running backs, right? You've obviously had the opportunity to coach some phenomenal backs during your tenure here at Ohio State. Mecca and I, we love them all, but we do think that Zeke may be the best running back we've ever seen play at the college level in terms of not just skill set as a running back, but overall understanding everything from pass protection to receiving to being a leader of a team, right?
Right.
Can you just tell us a little bit? And then he transitioned to the NFL, an immediate impact, right?
Right.
Can you tell us a little bit about the qualities that make him so special and kind of where he fell on your list? You've coached a lot of backs before him, but when you've got to interact with him.
Yeah. Zeke, it was just funny because I was talking about this to somebody just this morning in the office. I was talking to Wyatt Davis because he asked me. We were talking about it just this morning, actually. And, Zeke was, physical. Would try to knock your head off you. But he practiced that way too. He was such a physical presence and had physical dominance about him that I had never been around from a running back's perspective. And he didn't take that kid never took a play off, didn't take a day off, and loves the game of football, so I would say that's the thing that I think really set him apart is his physicality in every facet of his game. You throw in a special teams clip from when he was a freshman or sophomore, and the guy's running down the field knocking cats out. Here's a star tail. This guy's the number one ready to run right now in the NFL. He's running down the field trying to decapitate guys. It just talks about the kid plays so hard and he's so violent. He is a violent football player. And that's probably the thing that stood out the most. And he studied the game.
Mm-hmm.
He has a very high football IQ. And he really studied the game and wanted to be the best. And it worked that way.
And I'm going to ask a follow-up question to that too, because obviously, and I agree with V. Zeke to me is the best I've ever seen, right? We've seen a lot, so I'm not just saying that, right?
No,
and I've seen a lot even just at Ohio State, right? So even if I was just choosing from Ohio State, there's competition there. But then you follow up with J.K., right? And J.K. has his own kind of unique skill set, and so I wanted to ask kind of the same question to you about J.K. What was it that made him special, and how do you think he's going to fare in Baltimore?
Well, first, I'll answer the second question first. I think he's going to fare great. I think that he's going to have a guy that can mentor him in the NFL game, and Mark Ingram, who's had great success, but he's getting up in age a little bit in the game. I think he's in an offense that is conducive for him. It's very similar to some of the things we did. That quarterback goes without saying. I mean, how long do you want to talk about him, his skill set? So I think he's in the best possible place that he could be. Mm-hmm. And so does he.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
When you talk to him, and that's the thing. He says the same thing, which was good. So we're not, that he's not banging his head against the wall there.
Right.
Now, as far as I think what makes him special, again, he is a highly motivated kid. He is always on a quest to get better. Mm-hmm. He really was never interested in me and hearing me tell him how, hey man, that's a great player, great runner you did. He wasn't interested in all that.
Right.
If we talk for 20 minutes. That might take up about 30 seconds to a minute of the conversation. But then the rest of it was, okay, what do I do to get better? And coach, what about this? And coach, what about that? We would practice, and I might say something to him in the middle of a practice. And then I'd go in that night and watch film. We'd be there until 10:30, 11 at night. But at 10:35, 10:45, I'd get a phone call from him or a text and say, hey, did you watch play number such and such in this part of practice? Here's what I saw. Did you see this? We'd start watching game film, and he would say, hey, coach, go to when Team Up North played such and such Wisconsin, go to play 16. I want you to look at this, watch how he did this. And so that tells you that he studies a lot of film. Mm-hmm. He was in the film room a lot. J.K. and I would meet every Monday for 3.5 years. We met every Monday for about 45 minutes to an hour. Mm-hmm. Mondays are their day off in the season.
Right. Yep.
And he wanted to talk about, because we'd already watched the game from the week before, we watched that on Sunday. He wanted to talk about, we would quickly talk about the upcoming game, who their players were, scouting report stuff, if you will. But then he wanted to talk about leadership and how he can be better, not just as a player, but as a leader of men. He's a guy, he's a kid that, he's got a much younger brother, so he's pretty much a single child. As far as that goes. And so he really wanted to, how can I lead better? And so we talked about that a lot. And just the dynamics of how he could go about it within his own personality. And so he and I are, it's chronicle, he and I are freakishly close. Mm-hmm. He's almost like a son to me.
Right.
But I would say just that he's hungry. He wants to be the best. And he would, if you've been in our building, you've been in it, on the walls in each room, they have all the All-Americans and all the really, really good players and throughout the history of that position group room. J.K., I swear to God, every day he would look and stare at that wall. And he would stare at that wall for a couple minutes every single day. And he'd say, I'm going after him. And he looked at Zeke. He did. He looked at Zeke and said, that's the guy I want to go get. Mm-hmm. He said, if I can get my name somewhere in the books around Zeke, he deemed that as okay. I've done it, and he did. And he did. But and so to sit up here and everybody wants to know who was the best. Listen, they're both great in their own right, and they're different players, different dynamics, different teammates, different situations. When you say, "Well, Zeke's the best I remember," Zeke has the best I've ever coached. Up to that point, and he is. My goodness. Yeah. I'm not. Which one you want to kick out? I don't know. How about this? I'm not kicking him. I'm taking them all.
Right. Luckily, they weren't there at the same time, right?
Exactly. So, so we've been very fortunate. But I think Zeke somewhat helped J.K. be better.
For sure, yeah.
Because he was always chasing something. Mm-hmm. And the way that J.K. is built, he's going to find something else in the NFL to go chase.
Yeah.
Maybe it's that you should have drafted me in the first round.
Right.
Whatever it is, he's going to go find it. And what he's waiting on, he's waiting for someone to challenge. He's waiting for somebody to say he's not good enough.
Yeah.
Because he's going to jump on that. If John Blow says you're not good enough, he's gonna spin that in his own mind and his own soul. Oh, well, if everybody thinks that, then that guy's irrelevant. You don't even know who this guy is.
Well, that brings me to something too. Yeah. It brings me to something too. A lot of people say that he took the Clemson loss particularly hard. Obviously, we all did, right? Yeah. But, the type of guy he is, I think he almost was trying to take accountability for it. Is that kind of your sense of how he reacted to it?
Yeah, he did. 100% he did.
Yeah. And that's unfortunate too, because he was such an integral part in obviously the success and even in the success in that game. And it's just, but that's just how he's built,
That's my point. He's built different that way. And we can sit up here and you could go and say, J.K., it really wasn't, but he's going to look and say, no, I could have done this, and this to make the outcome of the game and change the outcome of the game. And something? That's an edge. That's a guy who has an edge about him. That's a guy who has a chip on his shoulder. And I hope that no one ever knocks that off of him, because that's what makes him who he is.
Right.
I think if you strip that away from him, and anybody, everyone's got their thing.
Mm-hmm.
And if you strip that away from a young man, boy, you're doing him a disservice.
Yeah.
Now, there might be some things that need to be a little tampered down or tempered a little bit or refined, but you don't want to take a stinger away from him either.
Right.
And so he did it. He took that exceptionally. He took that game exceptionally hard. He still does.
Yeah.
I mean, he was here just before he reported to training camp. He was here and he visited and hung out with me came up here for a night with me and the family and whatnot. And he's still bitter. He's still angry. You know something? Good.
Mm-hmm.
So am I. So are we.
Yeah. Go avenge it now.
Let's go avenge it. That's right.
Yeah.
Go avenge it.
And I wanted to ask you now, right? J.K. is gone. You've got two premier backs coming in, multiple premier backs coming in. You've got a roster full of talented backs. Yep. Everybody wants to be the workhorse, right? In a place like Ohio State, you got to share. How challenging is that when you've got guys that are this talented? Everybody wants to play, but there are only so many runs to go around. And then also as a coach, balancing it yourself, right? Like, do we need to have one guy be a workhorse to establish a rhythm, establish consistency, or do we need to spread it out, right? Like, how do you deal with those challenges as a coach at Ohio State?
Well, first of all, how do you keep it? You worded it differently than some. Some may say, well, how do you keep everybody happy?
Yeah.
Well, first of all, we don't run a happy camp. So that's the first thing, right?
Yeah.
You will get what you earn. And when the talent's equated, there's something that's going to tip the scales. What is it? Is it your attention in meetings or lack of attention in meetings? It's your attention or a lack of attention to details. When we say step 6 inches over here, that doesn't mean 8 inches. That means 6.
Mm-hmm.
So there's so many things that play into it, and then at the end of the day, it comes down to what do we need to do to win. Mm-hmm. And if that means that we've got to do it by committee, then fine, we'll do it by committee. It is what it is. At the end of the day, we're chalking up wins, not stats.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that I know our players have all bought into that notion because they're team guys, and that's the culture of the locker room.
Mm-hmm.
And when you recruit them, we tell them this is what it is. When you walk into this building, you're not the only 4 or 5 star recruit to ever walk down that hallway. Mm-hmm. So let's not get this twisted.
Right.
Everybody that walked down here was a star wherever they came from.
Right.
And so you will earn what you get. And this I say this all the time, and I make no apologies. I think our coach would echo it. This will be the hardest thing when kids come here to play here. This will be the hardest thing they probably have ever done.
Mm-hmm.
But it'll also be the most rewarding thing they've ever done when it's all said and done.
Mm-hmm. If they put in the right work.
If they put in the work.
Mm-hmm. And
they truly immerse themselves and buy in.
Yeah.
This thing can overtake you, and it becomes you. Mm-hmm. This will become how you work and this will become how you work in the workforce, and this will become how your intentionality in the way you attack relationships, the way you attack your job, the way you attack how you raise your children, the way you attack how you play ball. That becomes who you are.
Mm-hmm.
And so it is a very competitive environment. It's a competitive environment in our meeting rooms. It's a competitive environment in our staff room. Yeah. We're all competing every single day. Mm-hmm. And we believe that we've concocted, I believe, the best staff in the country. I think we have the best players in the country, and so we're competing every single day to be great. And as far as to go right direct to your answer though, do we have to do it with one guy or a multitude of guys? Time will tell. I don't have that answer. Mm-hmm. And that's not to put it off. I'm really not. I don't know. Yeah. Because we have some very talented players. Yeah. And hey, come in here and compete. And if you deserve to play, you're going to play.
And one of the things that you had mentioned earlier, much earlier in this conversation, you're talking about kind of the quality of player that Ohio State has, right? And a lot of different leaders. And one of the guys that's, being talked about today really is Justin Fields, right? In terms of his leadership as far as, putting together the petition and getting people activating around that and using his voice and realizing that he has a voice that at least people will listen to. Now, whether it'll change things, who knows? But that has actually drawn a bigger conversation kind of about the whole idea of college football and player activism and, name, image, and likeness and all of those and kind of throwing the whole conversation into like a frenzy across the nation. Yes. In terms of how to even evaluate college football. When you think of it from that perspective, right? How do you feel about the state of college football in terms of activism, right? Athlete activism, and kind of like the nature of, these conversations around unionizing and name, image, and likeness and all those type of things. Where do you stand?
Yeah, I am of the opinion. I think that these kids should have a voice, and they deserve to have a voice. But that voice is earned. If you're just speaking off the cuff saying craziness, so no, we're not listening to you. Mm-hmm. But if you're thoughtful and your thought patterns are right and you can tell that it's going somewhere productive, then they deserve to. Every man deserves to be heard. Mm-hmm. But again, your opinions matter. Yeah, but you have to earn that right and to be heard, and that's earned by the way you act, and it's earned by what your brand is and how you present yourself, right? Now, as far as the name, image, likeness, I'm again of the opinion that I agree with it. Mm-hmm. I do. I think, is it scary? Yeah, because I don't know how you put a monetary value on it. I don't know how you cap it, if you can cap it. I don't know how do you keep it equitable, if it should be equitable. So there's a lot of different things that come into play here. And with that, and, you got Title IX issues still that you're going to have to deal with. So, it's hard. That's hard. But I do believe there's a way to do it. Now, how to do it, I don't know. So I don't want to be the guy that's throwing, do this, but there's what's wrong with the world, but I don't have any solution. I don't want to be that cat either. Right. But I do believe that guys need to be compensated for their name, image, and likeness, because there's a lot of people making a lot of money off of 18 to 22-year-olds. Mm-hmm. I mean, there's a lot of guys making a grip of money off these kids. And then all of a sudden, you walk around, go to Ohio State. How many 15 jerseys are you think about how many number 1 jerseys would be sitting in that stadium? Mm-hmm. But he can't get a red cent.
Right.
But I think there's a way to do it. And hopefully the powers to be can come to some sort of resolution over here's how we can monitor this so that the outside agents and outside entities that are doing more harm than good don't get involved. Yep. Yeah. Because I think the intent's in the right place. Well, I know it's in the right place. The intent's in the right place. But how do you keep the people who don't have a good heart about them? How do you keep them out of the equation? And that's the hard part.
Yeah. No, that's a great point. I mean, I think, we obviously agree that these guys should definitely have the opportunity to be compensated, at least for name, image, and likeness, because of what you did say. And I think that there are smarter people than us, right, who deal with this type of thing, who can figure out a system, right, who can, it may not be perfect, just like there's no system that's perfect. But I don't think that's enough to say, okay, because it's not perfect, let's just not do anything. No, it's too inequitable.
I agree.
The great thing is the conversation is happening now, and they understand that change is needed, right?
Yeah.
One question that I had also about dealing with players during this time, right? If there isn't a season, you have draft eligible seniors, right, who are looking at this as their opportunity to showcase their skill, their big opportunity, showcase their skill at the next level. So my question is twofold. One, what is in place in terms of what is actually going to happen to their eligibility? And two, as a coach and a staff, there are some guys who may have needed this year, but probably were already NFL ready. How do you have those conversations as coaches with your players? Because I know they're probably more disappointed than a freshman could be, right? Because
especially with the spring season potentially lurking in the background as well.
Yeah, those are great questions. As far as that goes, our guys none of them have made a concrete decision.
Yeah,
because you said there's some things that are still lurking in the balance here. And if we can come up with an opportunity to play, I know Ryan Day and our staff has put together, a proposal to maybe start in January. I think that's out publicly. If that could happen, where we could play something and that maybe they would move the draft back and we can play a little bit earlier than the quote, maybe kind of a winter season that filters into the spring, then I think guys might play. And so I think a lot of guys are kind of just waiting to see what happens. They don't have to make rash decisions right now. Right. Across the country, it's just everybody just take a deep breath and let's see where this thing goes before we start. I think we're guilty as a society. When something happens, we want to just lash out. Here's where we're going to go.
Right.
Everybody sit back here and let's just take a deep breath.
Yes.
And let's communicate. Let's communicate. Let's let all the dust settle. And then we'll see where we lie.
Right.
And then we can start making some educated decisions based on all of the information, not parts of it, not what you think is going to happen.
Right.
But once all the information is laid out before us, now let's sit down and make some educated decisions. And as far as our players go, we will help them. We're not going to hurt them. They know that about us. Listen, here's where we're at. Here's what we got. If this is best for you to leave, then we're going to tell them you should probably leave.
Yeah.
And on the same side, and if it's not, well, then you probably shouldn't leave. And then they got to then their families will then make decisions accordingly. And as far as right now, what I'm going to do, and I think all our players or all our coaches are going to do, we're going to kind of come with individualized plan. What Master Teague needs is vastly different than what Mayan Williams needs. They're in two different places in their career. And so for me to try to, in this fall, to try to cookie cutter approach our players and say, well, I'm going to treat V just as I treat you, Mega. That's doing you a disservice.
Right.
Now, there are some things that maybe you both need and we can work in unison. But if you need something different, Mecca, than you need, then I've got to make sure that some of our things that I'm teaching you, the way I teach you, some of the drills that we may or may not be doing are conducive to help develop you to make your game and your skill set elite. And then flip over to you, V, and say, okay, here's what you need. And so now we got to go work more on this. Maybe you need more to catch the ball better. You need to work on pass pro better on this side. This guy needs to work on more pass receiving skills. So we've got to tailor make some things and make sure that we're thinking out of the box as far as our development of our players, because at the end of the day, we're providing a service to them. At the end of the day, we have been charged with making them elite in every facet and help make their skill sets elite. And so we've got to make sure we're identifying what those skill sets are that need to be worked on, if that makes sense.
Yeah. And you mentioned earlier your kids, right? And
my 3 sons?
Yeah, your 3 sons. Yeah. And then you also mentioned, how some of your relationships with your players have been father-son-ish like, right?
Yeah.
And it's funny because, when people talk about coaches and a lot of times, and professional athletes, a lot of times they just view them in that lens. They don't necessarily remember like, oh, wait, they're fathers or sons or, brothers or whatever. So the decisions and your sons are athletes, so they play sports. So the decisions that you make as a coach and the things that you're dealing with at Ohio State, are different than the decisions that you make in your daily life in terms of what to do with your kids and how to respond to the pandemic and so on and so forth. So I'm curious about that. What is your view on kind of high school sports locally, right, in Ohio?
Yeah.
What should happen with that? And then number two, and how are you dealing with that as a dad, I guess you could say? And then number two is kind of like, how has this pandemic been for you as a dad with 3 kids, aren't going to school and trying to figure out what to do there?
I spent a lot of time outside smoking cigars. I spent about 3 hours a day out on the boat by myself.
I understand. I understand it.
No, seriously. My oldest son just graduated. And he's going to go play football at Ohio Wesleyan.
Okay.
And we just dropped him off on Friday and moved him into his dorm. And I'm sure I'm struggling a hell of a lot more than he is, and I'm struggling a lot more than his mom is, that he's not 50 feet away from me. I can just walk down the stairs.
Right.
But I have the utmost respect for Tom Watts and that staff. I spent a lot of time with them, and I'm watching the excitement of my kid. And so, with that being said, that I have full trust in what they're doing with my son. And if they say, hey, we're going to play in the spring, I know they're going to play in the spring, but if he said, hey, coach, we're going to play, then go play. I got it. Go. I'm all in. The same holds true for my youngest son, Braden. My middle son doesn't play football. He's more into the arts. He's on competitive dance teams and travel teams, dance teams and things like that, which is great. But as far as like high school football, my son's a freshman. And I was sitting there watching them. They had an inter squad scrimmage on Friday night, and I'm sitting in the stands, and I wanted to ram my face through the bleachers. I'm like, how the hell is I'm sitting here watching this freshman high school have a scrimmage, and I can't. I'm not allowed to play. What is going on with this? And so I'm good with it. I'm perfectly fine with it. I think my wife may not echo some of my sentiments and opinions, but I think there's inherent risk in everything you do. And for the people that say, well, I wouldn't have my child do that, that's okay. I'm not mad at you. That's your business. And I would honor anybody that say that. For me, I've been around this game my entire life. My father was a coach. So I've been around this thing since I was born. There's inherent risk in all that you do. And that's up for each individual family to decide what they will and won't adhere to or allow. And I'm in a place right now, based on the things that I have learned, based on the doctors that I have talked to, and particularly our doctors, that, okay, here's where we're at. Now, if our doctors were to come in and say, here's, Dr. Borchert and our staff would say, here's why you're not playing, and here's why you're not doing what you're doing, and I could really gravitate and understand that, then I'd probably say, well, listen now. Our doctors have said this.
Right.
And so I'm not a doctor. I'm not into that science field, but there are doctors I trust.
Right. So you do respect the science aspect of this, right?
I have 100% respect it. So at the same time, when they say, okay, you can go, well, if I can go, you can go. That's how I look at it.
Right.
And I'm not saying I'm right or wrong, but if Dr. Borchers and our team of doctors, who I think are phenomenal, like Notre Dame's practicing to this day. I know those doctors exceptionally well. When those doctors say, "Hey, you got the green light," then I'm gonna look at my own children and say, "Well, you got the green light too, bro. Let's go."
Right.
And that's no disrespect to anybody who doesn't feel that way. Each man his own. That's not downplaying or saying that the science that Fauci and all the other doctors are saying. I'm not downplaying any of that. I'm dealing with the people that I'm comfortable dealing with. And so that's where I'm okay. And again, if someone's not in that boat, that's okay. That doesn't make anybody right or wrong. But you asked me where I was at with my sons, and my sons are my most prized possessions.
Yeah.
And there's one thing. Again, at the same time, I understand there are inherent risks there's some inherent risk to everything you do. There's an inherent risk when I get in my car and I drive.
Yeah.
You know, I don't know if that answers that or not, but.
Yeah, no, it's a good answer.
It's a great answer. I wanted to circle back to something you mentioned earlier about your desire to be a head coach. And this is going to be a question that I think is very important to ask, because we've seen in the last couple of years, if you look at your resume as a player, spending 12 years total at two of the most elite programs in the country, the qualifications are clearly there. The resume is clearly there. This became a big topic of discussion last year in the NFL hiring after January, when all these openings came up and Eric Bieniemy couldn't get a job, despite being the offensive coordinator of the most prolific offense in the NFL.
Yeah.
The unique, could you speak to at least and the times we're in right now, the unique challenges of being a minority and having to kind of have a higher bar than everyone else to get that opportunity, and how you've wrestled through with that through your career, because everyone has dealt with it to different degrees. It's all about how you respond to it.
Yeah.
I just wanted to ask you about that and give you an opportunity just to speak on it from your particular experience.
Yeah, well, you know, that's a touchy conversation that can get volatile and get people heated on both sides of it.
Yeah.
And I'm respectful of that. You know, as far I can only speak from, I'm sorry. Eric Bieniemy and I are very good friends. And, you know, he played at Colorado the same time I was at Colorado State. So we've been friends since we were 18 years old. And what a great football coach he is. And his time's coming. There's no doubt. His time's coming. And you know, and as far as I go, I like to think that timing is everything. And I have to believe in my heart that when it's my time, it'll be my time. Do I wish it was maybe earlier? Then yeah, okay, but it isn't. And much like I was saying when we first started talking an hour ago about you control the things you can control, and I can speak about it, and I can continue to try to prepare myself to the best of my abilities, and I can put myself in position. But if it doesn't happen, I guess, you know, I have to be careful that I don't allow me not being a head coach to define me. And I think a lot of times in my younger years, and coach, I'm 51 years old now, in my younger years, I allowed those type of things to define me, or so I thought they did. And the thing is, that's not going to, listen, whether I become a head football coach or not, at the end of the day, that better not define who I am as a man. I would like to think that what's going to define me as a man, or look at my three sons, you know, and then how are they doing, you know, and I hope that, you know, J.K. Dobbins, Ezekiel Elliott, Theo Riddick, T.J. Jones, Lewis Nix guys, you know, Dwayne Haskins, that guys that I have had the ability to coach throughout the years, will one day come back and say, that's my guy, and coach, you did this for me, and you touched me here. And when all of a sudden they're getting married and having children, they want me there. And hey, I'm in town, I'm coming to see you. That they're calling my sons on their birthday. They're calling my sons the first day of practice in their first ball games, because of the influence that I've been able to have on them as people. That's what's going to define me, in my opinion. Not if I was or was not a head coach.
Right.
That's just going to be in some magazine or some book somewhere, and you know, when I'm dead and gone, that this guy coached, you know, these amount of years, and but so what? You know, and so I'd like to think the things that are going to define me is the influence that I'm having on young people every single day. And but at the same time, I do want to be a head coach, and I have to believe that time will come. And if not, I said it'll be what it'll be, and I have to position myself. I think that in the time and age of what's going on right now within our country and our society, I think you're going to find a change. I do. I believe that. Now, some of that is going to be, I'm going to say this, I think that some of that may happen because of felt pressure that they feel is going to be applied, not because they really think that I'm ready or someone is ready, but they just got enough pressure that they didn't. And you can say, well, that's not the way you want it. Well, at the end of the day, listen, you know, Mecca, if I said, listen, you can work your tail off for $10 million or someone could give it to you, you got it.
Right. Take it any way you can get
you
it.
take it the way you get it, and then you have to make something.
And then you deal with it.
There.
Right.
And you deal with it when you're there. And so, and V, as I appreciate your question, and I'm hoping I'm answering in an articulate way.
No, you did. You're doing a great job.
All I can really do is, once again, is be the best that I can be where I'm at. And I can get both feet in the ground where I'm at.
Yeah.
And do the job that I've been charged to do to the very best of my abilities. And hopefully people will notice that.
Well, I'll tell you from our vantage point, people are noticing, and we're noticing. We're Ohio State fans. I was born into it. D was born into it, and we are grateful that you're Ohio State's running back.
Well, I appreciate it. It's great.
And honestly, this interview has been phenomenal. You've been very candid. But before we get you out of here, we're gonna switch gears, something totally off subject, something fun. Ask you two fun questions, and then we'll get you out of here. All right?
No, you're good.
Okay, the first question is, who are your top 5 musicians of all time?
Ooh, really?
Yeah.
Okay. All right,
personal list.
So I'm gonna this is gonna date me a little bit. So
okay. Hey, the oldies are the best.
That's right.
So I'm a big Gerald Levert fan.
Okay.
Big Gerald Levert fan.
Mm-hmm.
I really, this is gonna sound funny. I really like New Edition.
No, that's not funny.
Yeah, New Edition was that. That was kind of.
I love New Edition.
New Edition was the thing. Gosh, I love Luther Vandross. I don't listen to all that crazy rap that these kids listen to anymore.
You like to feed your soul, obviously.
Yeah, I just, and then I love Marvin Sapp. And V. You know who Marvin Sapp is? You do?
I'm a music head.
He's a music head.
Okay, good. You're a guy. You're into it. I love some Marvin Sapp. So I'd probably say those are the top ones.
Okay. All right. And then we got one more for you. Oh, actually, you only named 4. You
need one more.
Oh, man. Who would be the 5th? Damn.
Tony Alford in the shower?
No. I'd probably go with True.
True.
Okay.
I
like it.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, that's the jam right there. I love it. All right, cool. One more, and then we'll get you out of here.
Your top 5 athletes of all time.
Ooh.
Your personal list.
Mm-hmm. Really, Michael Jordan, definitely. Mm-hmm. He's like number 1.
Mm-hmm.
That guy. So it's top 5 athletes that I've coached.
No, just
your personal.
of all time. Your personal list.
Man, okay. I would say Michael Jordan's the leader of that pack. Lynn Swann, Walter Payton, Wayne Gretzky. Yeah, that one got you, didn't it?
Yeah, I understand though.
The GOAT right there.
And I would say, gosh, who's the last one? Man, I'd probably go Carl Lewis.
Yeah. Carl was
Lewis.
Man. Growing up, he was our Usain Bolt. That's what people don't realize.
That dude could get it now.
Yeah.
And even
Butch Reynolds, Butch Reynolds was no joke.
No, he wasn't. And that's an Ohio State guy too.
Right.
I miss that era of track and field. Michael Johnson, when the Olympics and track was really, really filled with stars.
Yeah. That's great.
That was I would say those guys and that's there's so many others,
Right, of course. That's why we do it. We like putting people on the spot.
If coaching, if I could have ever had a chance to visit with Pat Summitt, that's somebody I always wanted to sit down with.
Yeah.
And just pick that lady's brain. And
she was special.
Special. And Muffet McGraw's up at Notre Dame, just retired.
Mm-hmm.
And she was another one. Those two, I'd love to I did sit down with Muffet before, but Pat someone I'd have loved to sat down and just say, tell me about this.
Yeah. Because to win that consistently for that long.
Yeah, that's
something different about you. Exactly.
You're cut a little bit different.
Yeah, absolutely. And while your players love you too, right?
Right.
Like, how did you do that? Like, no,
how did you do that?
She's amazing. But Coach, thank you so much for joining us on the Pilot Boys podcast. This has been amazing. Very candid interview. much success to you and obviously the Ohio State football team, and then obviously you, your family, and your sons as you guys try to navigate this pandemic as well.
Well, I appreciate you guys for having me, and I got to tell you, man, your little boy, boy, you can hug him up, man. What a
oh man, I hug him all day. Thanks.
I mean, my
appreciate
goodness,
it.
man. So good for you guys, and then V, thank you so much for having me and taking time with me to have me on your show, guys. And best of luck to you, and stay safe.
No problem. Go Bucks.
Boys, we get on up. We don't fly, boys, we